Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, let us step away from the weight of the world for a while and rest beneath a softer glow. The kind of glow a lantern gives when carried down a quiet path. There is something sacred in this act of slowing down, of allowing our breath to return to its rhythm, of listening not to the chaos outside but to the whispers within. In this stillness, we will walk together through lessons. Not rules, not demands, but lessons as old as the stars themselves. They are reminders, guiding lights, truths that shine through the cracks of time. And they are meant to help us stay positive and enlightened every single day we are given. It is not always easy. Life has its storms, its disappointments, its shadows that stretch long and heavy across our hearts. But light is not the absence of darkness. It is the courage to hold a flame even when night surrounds us. That is what these lessons are for. They are lanterns for you to carry. And tonight I offer you the first. The first lesson is gratitude. At first glance, gratitude may seem like a polite word we utter out of habit, a thank you said without much thought. But true gratitude, the kind that shifts the ground beneath your feet, is more than a word. It is a way of seeing. Imagine beginning your day with the smallest act. Opening your eyes, feeling the air enter your lungs, and whispering softly thank you. Not to anyone in particular, but to life itself. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for this moment. Gratitude transforms ordinary mornings into miracles. A cup of tea becomes more than leaves steeped in water. It becomes warmth passing through your hands, comfort entering your body. A conversation with a friend is no longer just words exchanged. It is connection, understanding, proof that you are not alone. And even pain, when seen through gratitude, becomes a teacher. When you look back and say, thank you for what I endured, thank you for the strength it gave me, then even suffering is softened. There is an old tale from the mountains of Eastern Europe about a wanderer who carried only a small sack of bread and a walking stick. Many mocked him, saying, "You have nothing, how can you be happy?" But he answered, "I have everything I need. I have the road to walk, I have the sky to cover me, I have bread to share, and I have songs in my heart." And with that, he traveled lightly, joy never leaving his eyes. Gratitude was his wealth, and though he owned little, he lived richly. I invite you, dear listener, to make gratitude your daily practice. Before you drift into sleep tonight, call to mind 3 things that made your day a little brighter. They need not be grand. Perhaps the way the sunlight touched your window. Perhaps the sound of laughter nearby. Perhaps the quiet relief of sitting down after a long day. Whisper thank you for each of them. In time, this ritual will become a thread of gold woven through your days, and you will begin to see how much beauty hides in plain sight. Gratitude is the soil from which joy blossoms, and with it the heart finds peace. And so we carry this flame with us, walking to the next lesson. One that grows naturally out of gratitude, mindfulness. Where gratitude teaches us to notice what we have, mindfulness teaches us to be present with it. Mindfulness is the art of being fully here, in this moment, without rushing ahead into the future or wandering backward into the past. It is breathing and knowing you are breathing. It is tasting your meal and truly noticing the flavors instead of eating in distraction. It is hearing the wind and allowing it to be music. Consider how often our minds scatter like restless birds, always flying ahead to what must be done, or circling back to what cannot be changed. Rarely do we allow them to perch here in the now. But when we do, when we invite our attention home, life reveals itself in exquisite detail. There is a story from Zen tradition about a man who was chased by a tiger. He ran until he came to the edge of a cliff, where he found a vine hanging down. He climbed down, holding the vine, but below him was another tiger waiting. And then, as he dangled between two dangers, he saw a small strawberry growing from the cliffside. With one hand he plucked it, placed it in his mouth and tasted its sweetness. That is mindfulness, not denying danger, not pretending fear does not exist, but choosing to taste the sweetness of the moment that is here. You can begin practicing mindfulness in small ways. When you drink water, pause and notice its coolness, the way it moves across your tongue, the way it refreshes you. When you walk, feel your feet touch the ground step by step, grounding you to the earth. When you listen, give your full attention, as though the voice before you is the only sound in the world. These are simple acts, yet they transform how you experience life. Mindfulness also teaches us to sit with our emotions without judgment. To say, here is sadness and let it be. Here is joy and let it shine. Here is fear and let it pass like a cloud. When we stop fighting our feelings and instead observe them, we learn they are not permanent storms but passing weather. And in that acceptance we find a deeper calm. To live mindfully is to live awake. Each moment becomes a gift, each breath becomes a prayer, and life itself becomes a meditation. Gratitude opens our eyes, mindfulness keeps them open, and together they guide us toward enlightenment. As we move forward, let us carry mindfulness into the next lesson. The understanding that growth matters more than perfection. Perfection is a shadow that haunts many lives. We believe we must always succeed, always present ourselves flawlessly, always meet impossible standards. And when we fall short, we feel unworthy. But life was never meant to be perfect. Life is meant to grow. A tree does not apologize for leaning toward the sun at a crooked angle. A river does not regret the stones it must bend around. Growth is not a straight line. It is a winding path, filled with learning. There is an ancient Japanese art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with gold. The cracks are not hidden but celebrated, made into lines of beauty. The vessel becomes more valuable, more unique, because of its imperfections. We too are like that pottery. Our cracks, our mistakes, our failures, when embraced, become part of our beauty. They show where we have been and how we have healed. When you focus on growth instead of perfection, you allow yourself the freedom to try, to stumble, to learn, and to rise again. You do not ask, am I flawless? But rather, am I becoming? And that question leads to progress, to resilience, to enlightenment. There once was a boy who dreamed of playing the violin. He practiced daily, but his music was filled with errors. Others laughed, saying he would never master it. Yet he kept playing, not for applause but because the sound filled his heart. Over years, his mistakes became melodies, and his melodies became symphonies. His journey was not perfect, but it was growth, and that made it beautiful. So do not fear imperfection. Do not fear falling short. Fear only standing still, refusing to try. Growth is where the soul finds strength, and in growth, enlightenment blooms. And as we honor growth, we step naturally into the next lesson. Kindness. For what is growth if it does not soften the heart? Kindness is often underestimated, dismissed as weakness or simplicity. But in truth, kindness is strength. It is the power to see beyond oneself, to recognize the humanity in another, and to act with compassion. A kind word can ease a burden heavier than stone. A small gesture can ripple outward and touch lives you may never see. There is an old story told in many cultures. A traveler, weary and hungry, knocks at a stranger's door. The stranger has little, but shares what bread and water he has. Years later, the traveler returns, now a king in disguise, and rewards the stranger's family with riches. Whether or not the story is true, the lesson is clear. Kindness given without expectation returns in ways we cannot imagine. But kindness is not only for others. It must begin with ourselves. Too often we speak to ourselves with harshness, criticizing our flaws, doubting our worth. What if, instead, we practice kindness toward our own hearts? What if we forgave ourselves for mistakes, encouraged ourselves in struggles, and treated ourselves with the gentleness we long to give others? This too is enlightenment, to see ourselves not as enemies but as friends. Kindness then becomes a circle. It begins within, extends outward, and returns again. It is a flame passed from candle to candle, lighting the world without ever diminishing. And when we live with kindness, we discover a joy that no shadow can extinguish. That's part 1-3, 800 words worth of flow and build-up. Would you like me to continue directly into part 2, covering resilience, nature, simplicity, and relationships? In the same flowing monologue style? Banda inoa. Yes. Tro live videos SEO YTB van the da NOI. Great, let's continue seamlessly. Here's part 2-3, 804, 000 words of the reflective monologue for your video. Kindness, once kindled, becomes a fire that warms not only those around us but also the chambers of our own hearts. And yet, life does not always make kindness easy. There are storms, betrayals, days when the world feels heavy and cruel. To carry light through those times requires another lesson, one born from the marrow of struggle itself. That lesson is resilience. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It is not pretending that difficulties do not hurt. Rather, it is the courage to bend without breaking. The quiet determination to rise when the world has pushed you down. Imagine the bamboo in a storm. The oak may snap in the wind, but the bamboo bends, sways, and when the storm passes, it stands tall again. That is resilience. There is a tale from the far north about a woman who lost her way during a harsh winter. She stumbled through snow and darkness, her body frozen, her spirit near defeat. Yet she remembered the words her grandmother once whispered. The night may swallow the path, but morning will always return. She clung to that memory, pushed forward step by step, and at last, the dawn revealed her village on the horizon. The lesson is simple. When despair tells you to surrender, resilience whispers, hold on, morning is near. We all face winters of the soul, loss, failure, disappointment. But resilience is not about avoiding these winters. It is about carrying enough warmth within to survive them. When you look back on your life, you will see that the hardest days shaped you most. The scars you carry are not marks of defeat. They are the proof that you endured, that you rose again, that you are stronger than you once believed. Resilience grows when we learn to treat challenges as teachers. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can I learn here? Pain becomes a lesson in patience. Failure becomes a guide to wisdom. Hardship becomes a mirror reflecting your strength. When you see life this way, no storm can rob you of hope, for you know you carry the ability to stand again and again. And so resilience carries us forward, teaching us to endure. Yet it also reminds us that endurance alone is not enough. To stay positive, to stay enlightened, we must also find joy in the world around us. And where better to discover it than in the embrace of nature? Nature is the silent teacher, always present, always generous. When you walk among trees, you feel the patience of years written into their rings. When you watch a river, you learn about flow, about persistence, about finding a way around obstacles. When you sit beneath the stars, you realize how vast the universe is and how small your worries truly are. There is an old Celtic belief that the forest is a sacred cathedral, and to walk through it is to pray without words. Leaves become stained glass windows, birdsong becomes the choir, and the sunlight spilling through branches becomes the light of blessing. In every culture, from the shamans of the Americas to the monks of Asia, people have turned to nature for healing, for wisdom, for connection. It is no coincidence. Nature awakens the part of us that remembers we are not separate, but part of a greater whole. When you feel restless, take a walk and listen. Hear the crunch of gravel, the whisper of wind, the song of water. Feel your feet pressing against the earth, as though the ground itself is reminding you, you belong here. Notice the details, the way light scatters across a leaf, the way shadows shift as clouds drift by. In those details you will find calm. Even if you cannot always leave the city, you can bring pieces of nature into your life. A plant on your windowsill, a moment spent watching the sky, the practice of noticing the way the air changes from morning to night. These are small rituals, yet they remind you that the world is alive, and so are you. In nature we are restored. In nature we are reminded that every cycle, even winter, leads back to spring. From the wisdom of the earth we move to another lesson, one that whispers quietly but carries profound truth: simplicity. We live in a world crowded with noise, possessions, obligations. We are told we must always want more, always chase the next achievement, always fill our days with endless motion. But simplicity is the art of stepping back, of choosing less, so that what matters can shine more brightly. There is a parable of a fisherman who lived by the sea. Each morning, he caught only enough fish to feed his family. Then he sat in the sun, played with his children, and sang songs with his wife. A wealthy merchant once told him if you worked harder, you could buy a bigger boat, catch more fish, sell them, and become rich. Then you could retire and spend your days with your family, resting in the sun. The fisherman smiled and said, "But I already lived that life." Simplicity is not about denying yourself, but about recognizing when enough is enough. It is choosing peace over clutter, depth over distraction. When you simplify your space, your time, your thoughts, you create room for joy. You allow yourself to breathe, to notice, to live. Ask yourself, what do I carry that I no longer need? Perhaps it is an object gathering dust. Perhaps it is a grudge weighing on your heart. Perhaps it is a worry about something that may never happen. Let it go. Create space. In that space, clarity will enter, and with it, light. Simplicity teaches us that happiness does not come from abundance, but from appreciation. A simple meal shared with love can bring more joy than a feast eaten in haste. A single genuine friendship is worth more than 100 shallow connections. A day lived with presence outweighs a lifetime of busyness. When we simplify, we align ourselves with what truly matters. And what truly matters, dear listener, often comes down to this: the relationships we nurture. To live positively and enlightened is not a solitary journey. It is one shared with others. Family, friends, strangers whose paths cross ours. We are threads in a vast tapestry, and it is through connection that meaning emerges. To live positively and enlightened is not a solitary journey. It is one shared with others. Family, friends, strangers whose paths cross ours. We are threads in a vast tapestry, and it is through connection that meaning emerges. Relationships are the hearth of life. Around them we gather for warmth, for comfort, for joy. A kind word can steady us. A shared laugh can heal us. A hand held in silence can remind us that we are not alone. When we invest in relationships, we are not just giving love. We are creating a mirror where our own hearts are reflected back to us. There is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Positivity and enlightenment are not marathons run in solitude. They are pilgrimages walked with companions. Even when paths diverge, the love given remains, echoing in the soul like a song. Yet, nurturing relationships also means tending to them with patience. Misunderstandings will arise, conflicts will surface. But when we choose to listen with empathy, to forgive instead of hardening, we keep the flame alive. Love, after all, is not sustained by grand gestures, but by daily acts of care. Checking in, listening fully, offering kindness without being asked. These small acts weave bonds that last. And remember, relationships include not only those with others, but also the one with yourself. You are worthy of your own patience, your own care, your own compassion. If you cannot nurture yourself, your light will flicker, and you will struggle to nurture others. So tend to your soul as you would a beloved friend. Listen to it, care for it, forgive it, encourage it. That is where true connection begins. As we move forward, the path becomes clearer. Gratitude, mindfulness, growth, kindness, resilience, nature, simplicity, relationships. Each lesson is a lantern, lighting the way toward a life that is both positive and enlightened. Yet there are still 2 more lights to carry, 2 more lessons that complete the circle. And so, dear listener, we walk toward them together, hand in hand with wisdom, ready to discover what final truths will guide us home. Purpose is the flame that ties together all the other lessons. Gratitude teaches us to cherish what is here. Mindfulness teaches us to be present. Growth encourages us to learn. Kindness softens our path. Resilience strengthens us in hardship. Nature restores us. Simplicity clears the clutter, and relationships nourish us. But without purpose, even with all these lights, we may still wander in circles, asking ourselves, why am I here? Living with purpose does not mean you must discover some grand destiny carved into stone. Purpose is not always about climbing mountains or changing the world on a massive scale. Often, purpose is quiet. It is found in the way you touch the lives around you, in the way you wake each morning with intention, in the way you let your inner light guide you. There is a story of a woman who planted trees. Each day for decades she planted one seedling. Many mocked her, saying, "Why waste your time on something you will never see fully grown?" But she smiled and said, "The forest is not for me. It is for those who will come after." When she died, the hills were covered with strong trees, sheltering generations yet unborn. Her purpose was simple, but it transformed the land. Purpose can be as humble as raising a child with love, creating art that speaks to a single soul, cooking a meal that nourishes, or listening to a friend in need. Do not underestimate these quiet purposes. They are the threads that weave a meaningful life. To live with purpose, ask yourself not, what must I achieve to prove my worth? But rather, what gift do I have to offer this moment? Your gift may be your creativity, your empathy, your humor, your ability to listen. Each gift matters. Each purpose, no matter how small, is part of the larger harmony of life. And purpose does not remain the same forever. It shifts as we grow, just as rivers change course and seasons turn. There may be times you feel lost, unsure of what your purpose is. Do not despair. In those times, simply stay present, practice gratitude, nurture kindness. Purpose has a way of revealing itself when you are ready. One of the deepest truths is this: your purpose is not something you chase outside of yourself. It is something you uncover within. Enlightenment is not about reaching faraway stars, but about realizing that the light you seek is already burning in your chest. You were born with purpose. The journey is simply to remember it. So, dear listener, let us take a breath together. Inhale and feel life moving through you. Exhale and feel your place in the great unfolding. You are here. You matter. Your presence ripples outward in ways you may never fully see. That is purpose enough. And now, as we draw this journey to a close, let us gather the lessons once more in our hands. Gratitude, that gentle thank you for each breath. Mindfulness, the art of being here fully awake. Growth, the courage to embrace imperfection. Kindness, the strength to soften the world. Resilience, the will to rise after falling. Nature, the teacher that restores us. Simplicity, the reminder that less can be more. Relationships, the hearth where love burns bright. Purpose, the guiding flame that carries us forward. 10 lessons, 10 lanterns, each lighting your way. Carry them with you, not as heavy rules but as gentle companions. Let them walk beside you when you rise in the morning, when you work, when you rest, when you stumble, and when you rise again. Each lesson is not separate, they weave together, forming a tapestry that is your life. And as you live these truths, you will notice something extraordinary. Positivity is no longer something you must chase. It will flow naturally from within you. Enlightenment is no longer distant. It will shine in your daily steps, in your words, in your very presence. You will become a lantern, lighting the path not only for yourself but for others who walk in darkness. Before we part tonight, I want to speak to your heart directly. If these lessons have resonated with you, if they have brought you peace, if they have sparked even the smallest flame of clarity, then I invite you to stay close to this community we are building together. This is Lantern and Lark Tales, a place where stories are shared, where light is passed from one soul to another, where together we walk toward a life of positivity and enlightenment. So if you have found comfort here, I ask you to carry this journey forward. Subscribe to Lantern and Lark Tales. Join us as we continue to share reflections, stories, and wisdom that nurture the spirit. Your presence is not just welcome, it is needed. Together we are lanterns. Together we are larks singing at dawn. Together we are the light we seek. And so, dear listener, let us close with a simple breath. Inhale gratitude. Exhale peace. Whisper softly, I am here, I am enough, I am light. Carry that truth with you, and let it guide you into tomorrow, and the tomorrow after that, until your days shine with positivity and enlightenment. Thank you for walking with me.